Welcome to Cast of Creators. We're your hosts. I'm Nelson Thal.
And I'm Casie Stewart. We've spent our careers in media and publishing, and now we're setting the stage for creative people who inspire us to share their stories.
Cast of Creators is presented by our new social browser called Hover.
Hover makes browsing fun. You can follow people and your favorite sites to discover and discuss the web all in one place. Download Hover, that's HVR, in the App Store or Play Store.
Our guests today are Chrissy and Marie, a UFO expert with a history in PR and pop culture historian. Together, they co-host a podcast called Alt.Pop.Repeat.
We talk about everything from outer space to counterculture to cancel culture and how social media has changed. And let me just tell you, this episode is spicy.
Chrissy, Marie, welcome.
Hi.
Cast of Creators. Awesome to have you both here. It's
So
always exciting to do an evening show when we've got two guests.
It's called Cast of Creators After Dark.
Got
Yeah.
some wine. So
Totally.
Just a pleasure to have you both here.
Yeah, sure.
And I know that you both,
Everyone has to take a sip. It's just mandatory.
we will. I know that you both go back with Casie pretty
Yes.
far.
Yeah.
Very far.
And I'm interested in knowing a little bit more about how you girls all know each other.
my gosh.
well.
Where do you want
wow.
to start?
Well, that's
Where
up
do
to
you
you.
wanna Who should we start
Like
with?
15 years ago.
Chrissy and I have known each other. I mean, I've had my blog for 17 years, so I'd probably say almost 15 years. I've known you and Chrissy's company, Vocab Communications, had all kinds of events, PR things. That was back in the day when there were no influencers. It was just the bloggers, the blog gang. There wasn't that many of us. And we used to go to media events, and you had an amazing lounge every year at TIFF that was always so fun.
I'm like MMVAs, but yes.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah.
And there's so many of them. That was the time of gifting lounges.
Yeah.
So it's been, since I started Vocab Communications, almost about, it's been going on 14 years now.
Wow.
But I knew you before that, I believe. too.
Yeah.
It's been a long time. I'm like, so from like doing the stuff that we're doing in PR, and then now like Marie and I've like shifted over into the creator space too. It's like I'm kind of like blending my worlds together, and now it's like a new version of, I think it's 2.0 Newton.
3.0.
3.0 Newton. 7.0 Newton. 7.0. Evolution 100.
You do live in the future,
I
so
do.
that's
I do.
completely
I do.
fine.
If you listen to my other podcasts, you would know that.
So 14 years ago when you started Vocab, how was the industry and how was what you were doing day to day different from today?
Oh gosh, it was so different. Like there was no influencers. There was like just bloggers. There was
And there was only like a handful. We all knew each other. Like there was like the blog gang.
That's
people. Like,
and there was Twitter.
Yeah.
And that was like really about it. And YouTube.
yeah.
Twitter and YouTube. YouTube was growing in that space.
Mhm.
And then Marie, I'll say with the live streaming, but I'll let you talk about that. That's your shtick. But everyone kind of was living in this space. And I started Vocab Communications when I was 25. And so I was just meeting all these people that were my age. All of us were really hungry to grow. We wanted to do more. I was really like eager to grow my business and start like networking. So I was out all the time, like
All
either
the
throwing
tweet
events.
ups.
Yeah. Like throwing events or like doing anything in that space, going to media events, networking with people. So it made sense. And I think I met you when you were working at MTV, Much Music, at that time. And that's when all of this started to kind of blossom. And then our relationship as friendship started blossoming.
Yes.
Yeah.
So traditionally, PR sat sort of between brands and just the major publications like newspapers and TV.
100%. Yeah.
And then,
The online game was growing, but it was just online articles at that point in time. Yeah.
okay, so so 14 years ago, basically you're starting to see these smaller blogs come into the mix. And your focus is now not only just on major publishers, but also getting somebody's message out through bloggers
Like
and
independent publishers.
For sure.
So it's the start of this sort of cultivation of a new tribe of people.
Oh, yeah. And there's a whole new tribe now.
Yes.
I look 100%. I've been watching that evolution too, where I'm like, who are some of these younger ones? Like I literally said to Marie, like when we were walking over here together, I said, it's not clubs anymore. I said, all the young people are doing podcasts and they're like talking about sex and stuff. And that's what they're doing in Toronto. Because like there's so many in this like younger generation in their 20s that are doing all these shows and they're massive too.
And they start out like they don't all of us had jobs, and then our social was like a side hustle or a blog. I mean, some of us blogs became our job and whatever, but a lot of people now they go into influencer, like that's their like start out career job, which is a total flip from what it used to be.
Totally. A totally different thing.
My job was to explain to brands what influencers were, like what they were and who people were and why they were important.
I mean,
and why it made
arguably,
sense.
I think that was like Casie and I's job for a very long time, where they're like, well, what is this? What is this Twitter thing? And we're like, okay, let's start from the beginning. And so there's like a level of hand-holding happening so early on that just doesn't exist anymore. Now it's baked in. People have an expectation that when they have a brand that's going live, that they need to have influencers, they need to have a social plan of some degree, they need to be on at least 2 out of the platforms, and conversations are being led by clients where in many cases they're suggesting platforms that they want to be on, which I think is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Beginning, it was like, you got to be on Twitter. This is how we're going to do your brand voice, etc. And then now it's, so should we be on TikTok?
Yeah.
Should we be on? And I'm like, well, I mean, let's talk about it.
I mean, back then, I remember it was like pulling teeth sometimes for people to say, why should we pay you to do something on Twitter? Twitter's free. Or why should we pay you to do something? I'm like, do you know how long it takes for me to go to your event, do the thing, edit the photos, write the post, do the thing? Like, this is work. And just explaining that having a blog and doing social media was work. So I feel like a lot of the as an OG, I mean, for the people who are doing it now, like we really laid a lot of the groundwork for setting standards for like getting paid for things that were based on your own self as a media, entity. It didn't exist.
No, it didn't exist. And it's so crazy because I was thinking about it the other day. It's like all the lists. Remember when Twitter first happened, we were all chatting and we're all like, we all were being followed by like crazy, like Britney Spears follows me, the Beastie Boys followed me, Andrew Dobby. Exactly. Like there's like legitimate individuals that were coming into the
Justin Bieber follows me too.
I mean, is that before Haley or after? Well, I think there's something there we need to talk about.
No, what we should talk about is the very interesting story of Marie and my history.
I mean, it's a beautiful story.
I mean, it's actually a great story with a great ending. Who wants to start?
Well, I mean, this is again, we're going into
eating the popcorn.
The tea is about to swirl.
Going ready. Today is the day. Today's the day.
And if he listens to this, eat your heart out.
He's not gonna listen.
You never know. Never know.
He who shall not be named.
Exactly.
Casie and I were at some point we dated Voldemort. At just a very different time. Tall, kind of dangerous, somehow very charismatic, had a way about him that couldn't, but also something about him was just not quite right. But the thing is that Casie, it's just we overlapped.
Yeah. Like I had been dating him and he was like, oh, I'm going to a wedding with my friend Marie. And I was like, oh, cool. Like, whatever. I ironed his suit. I was like, go have fun. A little while later, it was like we were done and they were dating.
Yeah. It was a funny little thing because I questioned him about that too. I was like, okay, what's going on? Because he's like, I'm going to go to Casey's birthday party. And I was like, okay, that's fun. Like, have a good time. And I was like, we've been dating for a little while. Like, why am I not, why am I not meeting Casie? Like, you guys seem to be pretty close. I never clued in, never clicked.
Yeah.
How long? I eventually married him. Probably was not the best decision. Casie and I estranged. Like
and we weren't like
close.
I mean, you have blocked me on Twitter. But it was like we weren't.
Who hasn't been blocked on Twitter from anybody? Let's be honest.
And we weren't
been blocked.
And
we weren't at all. It was just I think we tried for a little bit, and then it just wasn't sticking because
it was fiery.
It was fiery. And then we separated. Me and my ex, we parted ways. And then the thing is that I'm friends with Chrissy. We have so many mutual friends.
Mutual friends.
And in the end, it was just simply, let's just air this out. Let's see where we went wrong. What is there a potential there for us to have friendship? Because if there is, what a fantastic story where we got rid of the guy, but we kept each other. Yeah, exactly.
And on
now
one
you're
magical
here.
day during the pandemic, we met on a patio in Yorkville for a cocktail.
Oh, this
And-
is recent. A recent weekend.
Yeah. And we talked, we laughed, we threw back a couple of drinks, we talked about him and all kinds of things, and the rest is history.
How about that?
So
It was
how
beautiful.
long was he able to do the CrossFit?
You
Like,
know
how
what?
long was the
CrossFit?
That is a bit of a mystery. I don't know.
What's the mystery of it all?
The question is, we probably could figure it out, but at this
What's
point,
the point?
What's the point?
Oh,
Like,
well, if
a
you
good
don't,
point.
you don't have to dive into it. But
Let's
we're
not
talking
go.
about-
Let's go
We're
forward.
not talking about a 2-year crossfade.
Oh, no.
No, I don't think so.
This was like, I mean,
Talking about-
I said weeks, months, maybe? I don't know.
Oh,
I think so.
I don't know.
I feel like it was. I always floated around like a 6-month mark.
Oh, geez, it was that long?
It might have been.
I was
just
pressing.
felt,
You pressed a bunch of suits.
Shit, I really got
You're busy
played.
pressing suits for 6 months.
Well, I mean, had I known what was happening,
I think he's the one who got played now.
Yeah,
let's be
sucker.
honest. Yeah,
exactly.
you know, he would have known.
Does that make? Are we? Is that Eskimo sisters? Is that what we are? Is that the
I've
term?
never heard that.
I think that's what it's called.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'd have even heard that before.
Well,
It's a term. Look it up.
That's a term for Urban Dictionary. If anybody wants to go into that.
I'll make sure to add that to the show notes.
Yeah.
Mom's going to be like, I didn't know this.
No, I know.
Yeah.
You know,
Better make sure that term's all above board.
we gotta let the children.
Oh my God, it's okay. This podcast has a rating where it's for adults.
That's how it's probably for the best for all of us. So I mean, that's how we met.
Yeah.
And then separately, we just
Yeah.
kind of got involved on our own paths.
Well, you never had really any problems with each other.
No.
No,
You
it was
didn't even know each other.
no, we
We really knew of, and like she had a blog, and I had a blog, and like
and it was a formative time in the city where we were all trying to find our identities. And I found and then for a while, it just kind of got through. Like everybody else that we were working with, kind of understood that there was Casie and Marie. And I feel like it created a feud that never needed to necessarily
I
be
agree.
there.
So you were blogging at the time.
Yeah, I had a blog called Karma Cake.
that was
Karma
also
Cake.
Yeah.
I think it was the
Huge.
Global Mail, the
Yeah.
National
Still on the
Post that
site?
quoted you as like
the
the
top blog.
yeah. What
Yeah.
do they call you?
Yeah.
The
One of
This
the
is
top-
Zoe Deschanel of blogging. Thank you.
Oh.
I mean, yes, obviously. I mean, it's way. Yeah. So I did.
blogging.
That's a huge honor. She
Yeah.
was massive.
Well, Zoe
then, too.
Deschanel never followed me as a result. So I mean, really,
That's her fault.
that's her loss.
That's her fault.
It's gone. Yeah. Yeah. So I did that for a while, and then I translated that into a live streaming project called Nat and Marie. And we were the first live streaming talk show. So we had, before all of this equipment, you were able to connect it up to your computers and go live with it and record. We did all the technology ourselves. So we created our
bet.
own.
It's only been made easy like in the last couple of years thanks to esports.
Exactly. And we were doing this 2010. And that was at the time you had Ustream, Livestream. Those were your two options. And then Dailymotion got in the game, and Dailymotion sponsored us.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was really fun. So we ended up, our thing was talking about digital culture and internet trends, which moved into like, it set me up perfectly because I'm a pop culture historian. So that was just a nice part of it. And we got an opportunity to interview everybody that was creating viral content online. So we had everyone from Epic Mealtime. They got 1 million viewers or 1 million subscribers. I'm sorry, when they were on our show. We had George Stroumboulopoulos. People are asking to be on our show, which was really nice. So we got to travel and we worked with Reddit in New York. We were able to find the formula for how videos go viral. And we were able to translate that into a project for 2 girls called Lennon and Maisie. They ended up with a show, Nashville. They were the 2 daughters on it.
Okay.
Lennon Stala has gone off and have a huge recording career. She's on the Game of Thrones soundtrack.
Wow.
And yeah, so we turned into this like whole other thing where we really learned about the mechanics of the internet. And
You were so advanced for your time then too.
yeah, but nobody really watched it because at the time,
Well, I think people
appointment
watched
viewing-
it, but
I mean, I watched it.
yeah, I think
It
people watched it. It's just that you were so advanced for your time.
It was a little ahead of the time.
Yeah.
And later on, I found out that there's a show that was being produced a few years after us in New York from the Upright Citizens Brigade, and it was called John Geller, Ian Geller. I have to look it up, but it's the same. It's our show.
Yeah.
So I watched it the other day because obviously I have a crush on Jason Mantzoukas, obviously. And I'm watching it and I was like, this is our show. it's the way that it was set up, the way the segments were, and for the live audience with the person who's doing the.
Oh, you didn't have a live audience.
Yeah, we had people could come by anytime.
Audience.
Yeah, the door was open. We broadcasted every Wednesday, and if people wanted to come by and watch, when we had regulars, and then come by and just watch the show.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was a good time, and then but it was difficult to make money at it because at the time, appointment viewing was not the thing. Everyone was like.
Everyone's still watching cable.
Well, no, everybody was like
They're streaming.
It was like, I can go onto
streaming,
YouTube and I can watch whatever. I can go onto Netflix, watch the show whenever I want to watch it. I don't need to tune in. Why would I tune into a show at 8 o'clock? And we're like, because it's fully interactive.
Well, and Facebook was just still like there wasn't that much social media. It was
in
so
2010. It
early.
was like,
life is tough though because of that. You know?
And also social media at that time. Like, I mean, I started at Much Music and MTV in like 2009. And I was the first person they ever hired for social. Yeah. But at that time was still like social media hadn't really, like Twitter was emerging as like something. But I mean, I still got made fun of at that time for being like, oh, Twitter loser. Like people who weren't on the internet were like, oh, you're your nerd friends. I was like, actually, these people are really cool. And a lot of people I'm still friends with now.
You'll be on there soon.
Yeah. It's like, look, my other friends were like, you and your Twitter nerds. I was like,
I got it too. Yeah.
Yeah. Like these people are cooler than you. Loser.
Early adopters.
Yeah, well, I mean, guess who inherited the earth? Nerds. Okay, go. Let me go take my $100 bills and cry myself to sleep. I'm sorry.
You're past them.
Oh, I don't have any tissues. Let me just say, Canadian currency is terrible for wiping your tears with.
Oh, I thought you were going to say something else, wiping something else.
No, money is good. I will not disrespect currency. I'm just saying that Canadian bills are plastic.
You can wash it, so it may not be so bad for that.
That's true.
No, you've got to
At least you can wash it.
No, next pandemic.
Yeah,
actually, no.
The mechanics of wiping your tears with Canadian money.
Yeah.
American money, great. It has paper in it. It has
it's tough to wash though.
Yeah.
I don't know how you're going to reuse that, but
you can launder it.
Oh yeah, you can launder it.
So there's workarounds.
I love it.
So yeah, that's kind of like our beautiful. And then through Nat and Marie, that's how Chrissy and I met.
Yeah, I knew her co-host really well, and her co-host was dating friends of mine who I knew from like Mike Celia. I'm forgetting the other two.
She was dating
Jeff,
friends or a friend?
Dating, well, no, I know, imagine. I know. That's like, what, Chrissy, what are you doing to me? No, she was dating Jeff, one of the companion brothers.
Matt.
Jeff. Wow.
Wow.
She was dating Matt.
A triple crossfade on
I knew Jeff. Put it this way, there were two brothers that were filmmakers that made a really great film, and I was introduced to them through another friend of ours, Mike Celia. Anyway, long story short, Marie and I met because of Nat, and I helped them one time during TIFF because they were like, Chrissy, we want to do some TIFF events, and I was always doing carpets or doing something else. So I said, sure. So I put them on my roster with my other clients, and then just RSVP'd with them to go to events and stuff. So then that's how I met Nat. And then did we tell the other part?
Which is the other part?
Well, how we
the
really
good part,
met?
the real good part.
Oh no! Well, about how we really met, but how we ended up reconnecting again.
Oh yeah, because we were going through breakups.
Exactly. Bring it back in. I know. It's always about men.
Look, if I am dating your boyfriend, we will end up becoming friends at some point. Mm-hmm. This is why.
It's full circle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
a simultaneous breakup, though, is a good way to connect.
Well, we ended up chatting. So social media brought us together again because we were on Facebook and we ended up in each other's chat. And like in a hi in a chat, taking photos, and taking anyway, we were chatting, and then we were like, hey, let's go for a drink. So we went out for a drink, and then I said to Marie, I was like, I've in the back of my head been wanting to do a podcast for like years, and it was like trickling back there. And I was like, she would be the only other person that would know how to do a podcast. Yeah. So she came over one night and we brainstormed, and then Alt.Pop.Repeat was born. But yeah, that's kind of.
And then I got my groove back, and Chrissy got into the groove.
Yeah.
Not like groove as in producing again. And it was just like, we got back into it, and it's been a lot of fun. And it's.
When was that?
That was 2018.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Because we went to LA 2019, August.
I remember seeing that, and I was like, ooh, what are these ladies doing? So your podcast is called Alt.Pop.Repeat.
Yes.
Tell us about it.
Pitch. It's how counter.
Bitch. No, I was
the
like,
pitch.
oh, okay.
I feel like, wow, what kind of podcast is this turned into, Chrissy? And I'm like, all right. It's how counterculture and pop culture, it's counterculture and alternative culture turn into pop culture, or how we use something called a sync.
Oh,
so it syncs up. So what are like the catalyst moments throughout history that counterculture or mainstream, or sorry, alternative culture has become mainstream? So like countercultures are cannabis, drag, the LGBTQ movement, hip hop, big one. Yeah. So
they're like they're cornerstones to pop culture.
Yeah.
And we look at the roots of it. And typically what we found is that they are deeply embedded in various alternative and countercultures. Yeah. And somewhere along the way, there is that, like Chrissy said, the catalyst that really pushes it into the mainstream. And it's a really interesting space to study. So, I mean, originally we were going to be talking about like how all these concepts of spirituality have turned into pop culture phenomenon now. Yeah. But once we started producing it and we started bringing people onto the show, the natural evolution was just to really talk about mainstream and pop culture, which for me is like great because I'm sitting there studying it all the time anyway. So instead of it being more of like the passion project of I love witchcraft and all these other
witchcraft and UFOs,
witchcraft and UFOs, it turned into all about pop culture. Yeah. But like we can tell you crazy things about like any pop culture. If you need a ringer at a trivia night.
Oh, I love trivia. Do you kill it at Jeopardy or what?
I mean,
I love Jeopardy. I watch it almost every night.
That would be a pop culture Jeopardy. No. See. Do you really?
How do you?
Yeah, I do watch. If I'm home, I watch Jeopardy my whole life. If I'm home at 7:30, I do like my making dinner from 7 to 8, where I watch Wheel and Jeopardy almost every night.
I love this,
and I almost watch Young and the Restless every day too.
That's amazing.
I'm 100 years old.
Yeah.
It's okay.
You know what? If you added
you're living in a specific era.
I gotta go, guys.
I think you're living like 80s, 90s.
I mean, if you have some Murder, She Wrote in there, some
I mean, I also do the roundup of CSI, Criminal Minds, FBI, any of those shows. I spend a lot of time at home.
Do you really like, yes.
Crime.
We all do. True crime, yeah. Are you really?
True crime. Give me a good murder. Love it. Especially if it's a serial killer.
Stuff like that too?
I'm not a true crime fan.
I love a serial killer
murder.
I
can't even watch that new, what is it called? The movie that everyone on Netflix is watching right
Dahmer?
now. I can't watch it. I watched 20 minutes and I was
sessions.
Like, it's too much. It's too intense.
Yeah. I have not.
Yeah.
I really enjoy Niecy Nash. She's one of my favorites just in general.
Cheers.
But I haven't gotten around to watching it because there's something about it that makes me feel
creepy.
Not in a good way, though.
No. I'm telling you right now, like I've watched pretty much every murder show, and like Dahmer was one I had to do. I'd be like, I cannot watch another episode. And I can't go to bed. I was like, we need to stop. I was like, okay, like
it's
too much. It's so the way he's such a good actor, and this is how the story is portrayed. It's just creepy. It makes like your skin crawl.
That's the whole point of the thing.
It worked, and it made me have like a sign of a good show, TV, movie, entertainment. It's like it makes you have a feeling, and it's
too
like
real.
It was too much, and I had to do it in definitely not a binge watch. No.
Anybody who did, I'm like, I question sanity a little bit.
Yeah,
you're creepy.
I just can't. I don't want to go to bed. It's like that saying. They're like, don't trust a woman or a man or anybody that goes to bed after they watch serial killer movies or documentaries.
I thought you were just don't trust anybody that goes to bed. I'm like, see, I don't think that logic works.
That's murder territory.
I did enjoy that was sort of tiptoeing in that direction was Dexter. The original Dexter.
I think I watched a couple
episodes. I watched a chunk of that.
Yeah.
But now I find with a daughter, and my wife is very like PG content.
Yeah, Talia does not like anything murdery.
That's fair.
Nothing
I don't
scary.
Watch any of that. I watch a lot of like how-to and educational stuff for me. I'm like always diving into
I watch Lex Friedman.
YouTube.
Let's always say Lexi.
Yeah,
Sexy
I
Lex
watch
is
a bit of
boyfriend.
Lex.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huge Lex Friedman fan.
Do you watch the Primitive Technology?
No.
Oh, well,
No.
If you wanted to riff on your how-to,
I will.
Go into YouTube, look up Primitive Technology.
Okay.
And it's a gentleman, it's a group of individuals. They're all around the world. And what they do is they make things using primitive technology. So they literally will go into the woods. They'll go into a remote area and they'll say, let's build a little summer house with a swimming pool.
Great.
And they just go in. It's just them and their two hands, and they make all these wonderful things.
I love that. I lived in the woods for a year, and I feel like I turned into a forest lady when I lived there. It was
You'd be a really good forest sprite. I could see you.
I was like growing stuff. I was propagating. Nice. I was like dyeing clothes with the skins of onions and turmeric.
It's a beautiful color.
We didn't have a lot of supplies because it was in the pandemic. So I was like, my theme for the year was like, use what you got. So I really used everything that we had and the supplies we had on hand. I'm really proud of myself for it. I mean, it really was a dream to do that.
Nice. It is something about it is so satisfying. I'm sure that it really opened your eyes at what was possible with very little. I mean, you can do almost anything and have whatever it is you want if you're able to invest the time and effort into doing it. It's like,
if you have the time.
It helps reframe my outlook on things, that like you don't need as much like consuming things, and like it helped me be more savvy about things, and like even clothes that I had that I planned to donate. I couldn't donate them at the time, so I cut them up into scrunchies, and I made scrunchies, and I sent them to my friends in the mail.
Yeah,
you know, and like I got back into sewing, and it's like I did all these things that I used to do with my mom and my dad when I was a kid that I hadn't done in so long because I was always technology or always on the go, and it helped me slow down.
Nice. Yeah. See, it's like
a woman.
You'd be surprised what a pandemic moving to Muskoka will do to you.
It
gives you some time. It's fantastic in a way.
It's true. It gives you some time to I mean, all I did was just eat snacks, gain weight, and not shower. Like that was my pandemic.
We were podcasting, and I was creating. I was teaching myself how to edit, and I was creating. I was working with the Debrief. I started working with another website, and just started to build with them with a group of guys from all over the world. And we're doing it. We're going on 3 years now together as a company.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. And our audience is mainly in the States, but it's been like that and I literally would stay up till midnight because I didn't want to watch TV. I was bored. I was like, I met this group of guys. We all liked UFOs, but we all like science, tech, and defense. And they're like amazing journalists. Yeah. Like unbelievable. So I got thrown in the mix with them, and then they asked me to be a partner, and then Bob's your uncle. We're still here.
I've been following, we're friends, but I mean, we haven't hung out in a long time. And seeing everything you post on, Facebook or internet, I didn't know this deep UFO fascination that you had. I mean, it's exciting. Our logo for Hover is a UFO, which we talked about, a little bit when you guys first got here. But tell me more about this whole UFO world of Chrissy.
Well, some people I know. Marie found out in our first episode of Alt.Pop.Repeat. She found out how much I was a UFO nut.
When we went for supper.
Yes.
Before
right. Yeah. Good point. Forgot about that.
Supper?
Dinner.
It depends. We can get into why some people say supper.
I say
and why
supper
some people say dinner.
But
I'd be interested in that.
Yeah, of course.
You need to have your supper. We're gonna have some UFO, and then after that, we'll have some dessert, and we'll talk about the cultural reason why people say supper versus dinner.
Right.
Okay? We'll get into it.
I know some supper
Marie's pop
sayers.
culture moment. Actually. So how it worked was my dad. I was into UFOs my entire life. So people that have known me, I have this high school picture that I should actually send. It's not even high school. It's elementary school where I have an alien on my shirt, and it's picture day. So I have that. I haven't posted on social yet, but I've been into UFOs my entire life because my dad had a UFO sighting with a group of people up north and just north of Toronto. And long story short, he took a picture of it. He showed me that photo, and I loved it. I always say it lit everything inside of me. So my dad has always had this fascination because he had an experience. So it was connected to me since I was 6 years old. And then I've just grown in it. And then what happened was, I remember when Marie was like, who's all these people you guys were talking about when we would podcast about it? Or I would talk about it with somebody who's in the counterculture. The irony of it all is Marie and I have a podcast about counterculture, and I'm actually in one now, fully. I live in it now.
But you're the best at it. That's the thing is so much about it in a way that is not only do you love it and you're curious about it, but the names, the events, all the watershed moments, and you make it so much fun to hear about. And There's not a lot of people, and there's not a lot of women that are in that space.
I'm really like one of the only ones.
I imagine it's definitely male dominated.
It is. But here's the crazy thing is like now I've been doing PR within it too. So like I work with the Debrief, and so I do their PR, but also podcasts with them. And so I also then have been like working with scientists like Jack Valet, and like had been working with media like from Politico, like Brian Bender or like Gaddy. Like I just had my first breaking news story come out on NBC about a UFO story, that I was covering with Ben Hansen from Discovery Channel. That was brought to me, and like then myself and one of my partners, Micah Hanks, wrote a piece on it, and then Gaddy I pitched it to Gaddy Schwartz at NBC, which we've become really close. So it's just crazy because you'd be surprised when you go to like these conventions and you're sitting with people that are like from CNN. You're sitting with all these people that are like love UFOs, and you're
group.
like, I remember I was like sitting beside Brian Benner and like one of the guys from CNN, and I'm like, where are we?
Arizona.
I know we're in Arizona, and like at this, at the Sheridan. We're all like, we're all like, it's so weird. And sometimes I laugh because I'm like, did you
have to get out of the space by 6 o'clock so they could set up for a wedding?
Oh God. But it's, they actually didn't have a cash bar though. But anyway, so they didn't have there was only a cash, it was only a cash bar. So they only had a cash bar. It wasn't a cash bar. It was only a cash bar and I couldn't use a credit card. That's it. Anyway, edit that out. Long story short, or keep it in. Long story short, I'm sitting with all these people and I'm like, who are you? Like, this is so wild that like all of us come from all these different areas that are like, you have PhDs. We have people from like PNG here from New York. And I'm like, what the hell? And there is this wonderful thing because UFOs brought us all together and we're all researching it. Brian Bender's, working with people and he's a massive journalist that does wonderful articles with Politico. And then I'm sitting here like going to dinner with like former people from the Pentagon. Like I'm a girl, like, Cambridge, Ontario. I'm down the street where I grew up on a bloody dirt road. Why am I sitting with the former intel or like texting with Christopher Mellon? Like, this is insane. I'm like, he was intelligence with the Bush and Clinton administration. And I'm like, what is happening with my life right now? It's all because of UFOs. But that's so wild. It's cool about UFOs. Take it any day. I do, I know. But the thing is because I've become like, I'm only one of the only PR people in this space too. And I'm a woman. So like there's a lot of doors that just opened. And like I love the topic. I innately do. And I've been studying it since I've been a little kid. Not compared to Micah Hanks, who's probably going to watch this because he's a damn encyclopedia.
I think that you offer something really special in the space that no one else brings. And it's just fun to talk to you about aliens or UFOs or UAPs or crop circles or multi-dimensional.
UAP?
It's a new term for UFO, unidentified aerial phenomenon now. It's a new form. So long story short, it's just been
a good one. That's a good, an aerial phenomenon.
Yeah, that's a new term.
So in your experience, how much of UFO sightings are defense related stuff?
That's a great question. So tons. Some we think could be foreign adversaries, and if they are, then we have a way worse problem than just UFOs and not being able to identify them.
So what does that mean?
A foreign adversary could be like China or Russia.
Oh, okay.
And so somebody that's coming in, if they have better tech than North America, it's an extreme threat to us, to Canada and to the States, because you're having China coming into our airspace.
Another country. Let's be kind. Like, let's not blame it on because we don't know.
No, I said China, Russia, North Korea.
But they can have satellites above the U.S. anyways.
Well, it could be any foreign adversary, right? It doesn't matter. I just named a few, but it could be any.
What would they need to get that low for?
Pardon?
What would they need to get that low
Spying.
for? But they can spy from a satellite.
They could technically, but we don't know what they're doing. That's the whole point of being a foreign adversary and spying on us. We don't know what kind of intel they're looking for. It's crazy because I've sat with
I don't know what they're going to find.
Well,
it's not much. Just go to the
They do foreign adversaries. There's so much more that they could do. For sure, we have China has satellite killers where they attach onto other satellites now in ours. And then they attach them and then become one. And it becomes theirs.
One of the bonds from the 80s.
It's happening now. It's crazy.
I bet.
Yeah. And so there's all this stuff that goes around. Space Force.
Which you basically need if that's what's happening.
You do. And right now that conversation with Space Force is interesting because it's not just it's like we're having galactic Star Wars. It's just what is out there. And, what is foreign adversaries doing and what's going on outside of our own planet. It gets wild. When I've sat with some people from defense and I get to ask them questions about like when they've worked in the Pentagon and Intel and the intellectual community, you know, I'm like, what's the stuff that you guys are doing that are disinformation campaigns? And, you know, they tell me because some of the stuff is obviously unclassified, so you can chat about it. But the stuff that they do is really wild. And we do it too, just as much as foreign adversaries do different disinformation campaigns on other countries. We do it as well. I don't know so much about Canada, but I'll say the States does for sure. So trust me, it's been an interesting road for the past couple years. Thank you, COVID, I guess. I don't know.
Look, I don't know.
It's the only great thing that came out of it for me, minus Marie and I podcasting like crazy women.
Yeah. But I think the one thing that comes out of this is that there's a lot of questions that still need answers. And on top of it all, that if it is foreign adversaries, then the world is much more, I want to say insightful, like not insightful as in it's very insightful, but they're trying to incite, and that the world is kind of like we're all kind of at odds with each other.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Is this why elderly people get so cynical?
Well, they've been through it.
But it's never been in harmony.
No, I guess
Well,
not.
I would say we finally, like we have war now, but before what's happening in the Ukraine, we haven't had war. There was a very long time before that. It was the most peaceful time that we had before the Ukraine started, really. So, and that might be due to social media. I don't know. But this is the first World War connected that we're watching on social.
But behind the scenes, you've got total turmoil, I imagine, disagreement and all sorts of
you just look at
friction. It's just anybody is either biding their time or moving forward on what they want to, on their agenda. Well, it's like they pick their pockets to move forward on their agenda. And sometimes you have a pocket that's more appealing than others. Yeah. You know?
It's true.
Yeah. And it also depends on, you know, who's making the first moves. You know, we look at, like, we don't even have to go get into all the foreign adversary talk, but you look at what's happening in the Ukraine and you wonder, is China going to make the next move, right? Are they the ones that are they going to attack Thailand?
Well, it seems like it's in
Taiwan.
It seems like based on the response to Ukraine, that it's a pretty opportune time to make the move. I mean,
well,
you know,
but the question is,
like that response,
you know, do they? Then what happens if they do? So,
exactly. I bet you they're feeling pretty good that not a lot's going to happen.
Well, you never know. And then the question is, if, you know, when I was talking to someone on Intel about this, Lou Elizondo, I had an interview with him about it. And I said, what happens then outside of this UFO talk? Because China actually has a UFO office too, which is insane. I know everyone is starting all these UFO offices. Even Canada will probably have one at some point.
They all would.
Yeah, but they were saying that, you know, what might happen is that if China does invade, then Australia might come next, and then we might all go. Like
Australia's crazy. Don't mess with those guys.
It is. Yeah, absolutely. If the dominoes. I mean, if
it's crazy.
If a superpower that has ambitions to take over many countries it goes unchecked, you've got problems, right?
Yeah.
So and a superpower who wants to take over countries, you just have to look at recent history. You know, those individuals, they want to take over as much as they can quickly.
For sure. Yeah.
So you gotta
countries do.
You gotta make sure that you've got some type of force, fighting that.
Yeah.
So look, it's
and this is the first time ever that we've been able to like watch war. They're calling it World War Connected. You know, which I think is insane.
Oh, that's an interesting term.
Yeah, like you can go and you can literally, like we were talking about this on the phone the one time because I've heard other people were saying, oh, you know, on Snapchat, and I was like, I haven't really gone and like looked at the map to see what everyone was snapping. And I was on the phone with Marie and I'm like, oh my God. It was like finally decided to like zoom in on the map. And then I was looking at Iran. I was like, what's going on? And like just finding in those pockets. But literally because of Tim McMillan at the Debrief is the defense writer for us. And he's unbelievable when it comes to reporting for Ukraine about the Ukraine conflict. So I get to hear firsthand from him in our Discord chat group in our newsroom. But the stuff that he posts, please follow him on Instagram if people are follow Tim McMillan. Because he'll post live stuff like that bridge that blew up in the Ukraine. That was like, Tim had that as a snapshot, like instantly. He had when like other, I think bases or other things were getting attacked. Like he knows because he's been watching so closely and they're giving him intel as a journalist as well. So he's getting all this firsthand material that we would never, ever get, or any journalist would ever get ever. So it's wild to watch on the other end.
Do you ever think it's crazy that look at what we have access to right now? That if this was 20 years ago, 30 years ago, the concept of building your own media brand in your own broadcast, in your backyard,
it's impossible.
Would have been impossible.
Yeah.
And yet look how powerful it is that you are creating this, working with incredible people and putting out really interesting content that is inspiring people to think about the world in new and different ways.
It's wild. With like our team literally consists of like Germany, Long Beach, California, Toronto, Manitoba, North Carolina. That's where all of us live. And then we have contributors from all over the world that work for us too and contribute to the outlet. So it's wild. And then you're getting tip-offs too. You know, that's the other thing too, where people are like, hey, we want to, you know, do more investigative journalism. So I've been learning so much more about investigative journalism from Tim too, who's a former cop as well. And then other just really wonderful journalists. So I get to watch them play in this space. And then I get asked questions. And then I've been able to break my own stories because I've watched them and then been like, okay, this is how you guys go do it. And then I'll go do it my way, which has a little bit of a PR spin to it too, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So it's a really crazy, crazy space. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you could, if you're not careful, you'll stumble on a story that you're afraid to break.
Yeah. There's been a couple times that's happened. I'm filming a piece in Utah right now in the Uinta Basin. And there's a couple pieces in there that I've met through the community and that I've been called about and been like, hey, you should go look at this. And I'm a little bit weary to report on it because I have to do my due diligence and I have to triple check to make sure. You usually do about 3 to 4 checks to make sure it's like factual. But long story short, it's not you don't want to screw up anyone's life. And you also don't want to say false information, right?
No, you don't want to say the wrong thing, or you don't want to say the wrong thing. You don't want to like get anyone. You know, the thing with the internet culture now is you say the wrong thing and it's like, boom, people are on you. Like you have to make sure that the information that you report is factual and that you can back it up. Because if someone comes for you, that's like a horrible thing to deal with on the internet, you know?
Yeah, no thanks. I'm not. No way.
I don't want to.
Cancel culture is real.
Yeah, I don't. We don't want to do anything to be canceled.
No,
but the roots of cancel culture, like I think cancel culture is really interesting because the way that it's being used right now is where it came from. Though, it's a really important piece of protest that was really only isolated to the Black community in the United States. So as they were moving through civil rights, and there's whole communities of individuals that didn't have the power of getting their story told in the media, or didn't have the power to have their voices heard outside of their communities. The only thing they had power to do was to boycott brands, to work as a community to cancel. So if somebody said something that was not helpful or it was harmful to their community, they just disowned them entirely. And that was like an act of power, it was an act of protest. It was something that enabled a community that was marginalized to have some sort of power in a world that was revoking it from them. So then it's like, as time goes on, there was like the first time it popped up on Twitter had to do with like basketball wives, and that was the whole thing. But how it's being used right now is as a form of mass control, as opposed to a form of mass protest.
Because I'll play the devil's advocate. You know, we get to a point of political correctness and then we get into virtual signaling where you get the masses that is far left and far right, because we have both. And, you know, I try to sit in the middle as much as possible, right? Like in the old school days, try to sit as much as possible. I probably obviously lean more left than I would lean right. But I do feel that anyway, this is not my political.
Left-leaning, right-handed.
But with that said, is you do get that far left that starts it's virtue signaling and screaming political correctness. And then it's like, oh no. And then you're like, I'm doing everything wrong. So you're questioning yourself. You're editing what you're saying. You're like, oh, I don't want to do something wrong. And that's really scary too on its own. And that happens with celebrity culture. It happens with us individually, as groups, as friends. Yeah. People start calling each other racist, or they start doing things that you're like, hold on, don't label me when I'm not doing that, because you're either virtue signaling or there is the case that the far left is making you feel that way. So you are so scared and you need to censor yourself. So you're censoring everybody around you.
That's interesting.
That's really scary.
Or someone calling you out. Because I remember someone had called me out because I hadn't spoken out about an issue where it's like, hold on, like I already made a donation to the charity. I had done things behind the scenes and I have done things like I don't have to, just because I didn't shout it from the rooftops on my Instagram.
Well, that's bullying.
Yeah. And it was like, I'm not even friends with that person anymore because they were like, why have you posted this on Instagram? Why do you post maybe a black square or something? And it's like, you know what? Being the person living who I am off the internet and being that person is more, and doing actionable things off the internet is more important than just posting something.
Well, and it becomes this competition, and then that's the virtue signaling.
I was
I
like,
know
"Can you
better
get
than
off
you
my
do.
back?"
Right.
I was like, stop bullying me because I haven't done what you consider. I was like, I have done other things.
Well, and also it's affecting everybody's life. It's like I'm allowed to make a stance, but I'm also allowed to have my own personal private life as well.
Yes, how your choice, you're allowed to choose how you want to move in this world. We 100%. All do. We all have the same freedom of choice and the freedom of presenting ourselves. There is, when we're talking about like virtue signaling, it seems like it's a very empty process where individuals are going forward and they're trying to enforce what they believe to be morally correct. So they're like, this is what I believe to be right. You are wrong. I'm going to call you out on it. Where I would love to challenge everybody that tunes into the show is to do what I call, like, again, what we all say is do the work, is to really understand the theory behind why those words are harmful. Understand the theory behind why some of these actions like cancel culture is either good or bad. Like, understand why, because this is where you can start deconstructing within yourself and appropriately respond, because we have to start moving away from emotional responding to things because we are putting out so much content.
It's a solid point, Marie, because we've had this happen on Twitter. We had this conversation once where Jeremy Corbell, we were all in a Twitter conversation and I was camping and I didn't have my phone with me. Well, I did, but I just had Signal. So I came back and I was like, what is going on? Like everything blew up and I was like, what's happening? And so people were making comments and someone made a comment. I'm not going to use it, but they were using a derogatory comment toward the LGBT community as Marie took it. But I read it and I was like, this guy's just using like the F word because he feels that he's just like throwing it out there.
Yeah.
But here's the thing is Marie's like, no, get me off this feed. And I remember we talked on the phone and I was like, well, honey, don't let him cancel us. You're just smarter than he is.
Yeah.
And she's like, what? And I was like, he has no idea where that word stems from. What is that root? You do because you're smart that way. But you also study it and you care. And you show that and you reflect it in the way that you move in the world.
Yeah, you're going to have people use words sort of because they have a different relationship to that word than other people, like spaz. Okay, she's using spaz just like,
I used to get
just off the cuff. She doesn't realize
we all did.
Isn't right. But she's not canceled for sure.
She handled it appropriately. All I can say is if we want to take a look at examples of appropriate ways to handle when the public is uncomfortable with something, it's not about being dismissive. And this is something I think for brands, it's really important. I do a lot of...
well, you don't... If you're the type of person that doesn't want to hurt people, then you'll handle it in those ways. She's not writing this song with the intention to hurt people.
No.
So... she'll handle it in that way.
And sometimes...
I think that's the appropriate way to handle it if you're somebody out there who's not trying to hurt people.
But ultimately should not be a bully though either. Just because,
No, but the thing is though, someone who's sensitive, who has the power of these platforms, that's what happens. I don't think that you're going to influence that sensitive person who has that power all of a sudden when they haven't had power. You're going to have that one or two or whatever amount of people, unfortunately.
Yeah, you will. I think you'll always have. I think you can say anything and it will offend somebody at some point in time. I probably offended multiple people. I don't even know I'm offending them, and not trying to.
No.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and that's why, we say this on the show where, we've said this a few times when we've interviewed people saying, look, correct us if we're wrong. Because we're coming into this with our own set of beliefs. Again, growing up in Canada, means that we were raised with certain belief structures from our parents, from society, from the government, from Western culture, you name it. And we're armed with that when we move in the world. That affects us, the way that we see everything, whether we're aware of it or not. And so if we say something or we ask a question that is inappropriate, please correct us because we're open to changing. That's a part of our journey.
Yeah.
And that allows us to get into some really incredible conversations with with celebrities that we wouldn't necessarily have. I mean, God rest his soul, Coolio.
I know.
Let's not forget counseling Coolio in the episode.
We did cancel him.
We didn't cancel him. We counseled him.
Did I say cancel?
Oh, it's not
Cancel.
No,
big difference.
Big
no,
difference.
did I say cancel? Yeah, we
counseled him.
Canceled. Thank you.
Counseled.
I can't even say it. Cow. We're therapists to Coolio.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like
it's a good. He had a moment where he just let everything go. And we're like, wow.
Oh
We obviously
I need
didn't
to listen to that.
Yeah, we didn't keep all of it, but we still we have the full tape of it. But we obviously used like a 30-minute snip of like at least an hour and a half conversation with him. But he was talking about. Who's the one artist that he was working with? CeeLo, and how CeeLo hurt him so much, and like their friendship, and like just he went through like you could see the ups and downs of his career, and where people just stopped talking to him because they didn't think he was cool anymore. Coolio wasn't cool anymore.
It's a disarming tactic when you come into it as a blank slate. I am everything and nothing, and I'm willing to sit here and just be audience to whatever it is that you bring. I'm not here to judge you. I'm here to learn, and I'm here to share your message with others. And I think it's a really powerful place to sit. So when Coolio was going through, like we were chatting with him, and it was a very like rigid interview for a spell. And then I can't remember what the line of questioning was, but we just tag teamed, and we got to a point where he just spilled his entire heart out, and we let him go. And then afterwards we're like, okay, we're going to take a second, and we're just going to acknowledge that what you just shared with us. And we're going to talk about how right now you've got two super fans who have loved you since we were little, and we're here talking with you right now, and we're here for everything. And then he started sharing stories about how he was one of the first hip hop artists to play in the Middle East, and telling about the experiences of having rooms that were segregated, half men, half women, and what the experience was him as an artist. And we ran into these really wonderful places, which hopefully one day we'll be able to share those interviews in full maybe when we were live with Big Comedy Network in the new year. But there's some also great resources online to take a look at that I think it's great. I think trying to deconstruct your internalized systemic racism and colonialism, I think, is a joyful process that we all should participate in. And there's some incredible sources. There's an ableist and dictionary where you can go through, and if there's a language that you're unsure about, it will tell you the roots on it, why it's harmful. I think I try and advise that to many of the corporations that I'm working with, because it's helpful. Because sometimes everyone's like, is this bad?
Yeah.
I don't know.
You have to teach people.
People. And there's some really interesting history behind, or etymology behind, the words that we use that we just completely take for granted. So, I mean, I'll leave that for people's discovery. There's also some really great, I'm trying to remember his name, Alok. Where are you? He is a non-binary. There's a really incredible author and speaker, and his name is Alok Vaid-Menon, I think is his last name. And he is a non-binary just pundit, and he's incredibly well-spoken, really, really wonderful to just really learn about some of these things. And I think it's so relevant. He really challenges some systems that we have come to really accept to be true. And that's kind of like these days, I'm doing a lot of that because I feel like we as a society are there. But to see how we have changed throughout history to get to this point, I think is really inspiring. So yes, I think we definitely need to talk about how we got to push out this pus where it's like all of the right wing, really hardcore people that have no interest in changing are really trying to impact others. Yeah, that's a problem. But we need to look at it. We need to see that before we can actually change society and change the way that things are.
Well, look, society has problems with radicals.
Yeah.
You're not going to have a great dinner with a radical, no matter what you're dealing with.
No, you're not.
So, yeah, radicals are problems.
You might.
Yeah.
You might.
Yeah, they've always been a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, what are we having a meeting now?
Bart Simpson radical.
We got a radical dude. Don't have a cow, man. Does Bart Simpson still say "don't have a cow"?
No,
I really think he
so.
should
fix it out.
They should
I
have.
don't think that's appropriate anymore.
I don't. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's probably not. I know.
I wasn't allowed to watch The Simpsons when I was a kid.
I wasn't either.
What?
Yeah.
No, I never. I still Like I haven't watched anything that's like that kind of humor. Like I'm not into, and I wasn't allowed to watch it.
How dare
I wasn't allowed to watch it. But then when I started getting into high school, then I was like, okay, you can watch it. But I was not allowed to watch any of that stuff as a kid.
I wasn't allowed to watch Degrassi.
Really?
I was an extra on Degrassi.
Really?
Degrassi Next Generation?
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, no bigs. No bigs. I'm sorry. Did you meet Drake?
No.
Was
I
that-
was a lesbian at the bar.
Sure. Was that? Are you in the credits as lesbian at the bar?
I wish.
Are you in the? You're in the credits
Yeah.
though.
Well, me and my sister were extras. Yeah, we spent a summer doing background.
They're like
Yeah.
women at
That's-
the bar.
Yeah,
It says in the credits,
I'll find it.
lesbian at the bar.
I mean, that's also probably not appropriate to
Please.
call that, but I mean, that was my role.
I mean, very empowering women from
Yeah,
the Isle of
I mean,
Lesbos. I mean,
I
there's
love it. I'm happy about it.
there's nothing wrong with it. It's
I'm
empowering.
empowered.
You know, and so
We are
what
all
else do you want to?
empowered.
What else do you want to talk about?
We went through
Well,
a
I'm
gamut
sure that
there.
we could talk for about 3.5
We
hours.
could.
No
Oh,
problem.
We never
I
talked
know.
about the supper and dinner difference. I
No,
think that's
I know.
people are going to have to look that one up for themselves.
Absolutely. Well, thank you both for joining us. This was
Yes,
awesome.
Thank so
It was
much.
a pleasure.
This episode is spicy. Yeah.
Well, you know, we got
No,
into
but I
some
mean
big
a
stuff.
good, a
Yeah.
good spicy.
It was a full meal.
Yeah.
you got a
I
taste
thought you were
of
going to say
everything.
it's a full moon. I was like, kind of has that vibe too.
Probably is.
These are, I think it's important conversations.
Yeah.
If there's one thing that we were able to accomplish in it is we were able to have a really big conversation and share some really important points of view and like show people that you can have like a conversation about it that's non-emotional, but really get to a place where you're just like, you know what?
Yeah.
We got to do better, guys. We
Yeah,
got to do
let's
better.
All do better.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you
Beautiful.
so much for being
Thank
here.
you.
Thanks,
I
guys.
love you.
We love you too.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode with Chrissy and Marie. Check out their podcast at Alt.Pop.Repeat.com.
And find more episodes of our podcast at castandcreators.com, subscribe on YouTube, or listen on your favorite podcast platform.